Hello. It's been a hot minute. I am so sorry for not uploading this type of video in, like, literally 2 or 3 months. School just started, and I'm dealing with some stupid stuff, and I'm also just incredibly lazy, and I prefer to sleep instead of working on videos, but I am back now. But yeah, sorry. I can't promise I'll upload these as frequently as I used to, but I do enjoy making these videos, so I'll try to get at least one a month in. It'll probably be more than that, I hope. Also, I'm recording this during a thunderstorm because nature hates me. So if you hear that in the background, I apologize. There's literally nothing I can do. So, Japan, my beloved. I'm sorry, I've got into the habit of saying that after everything. I need to get on with this video. Japan is a pretty chill person. She can get a little hyperactive sometimes, but she isn't really that hostile towards anyone. I mean, yeah, she's pretty cooperative with the countries that she likes, and she kind of has enemies, but she's not, like, actively fighting anybody. Her best friends are probably America, Australia, and New Zealand, and she's also close with Germany and Italy because, like, childhood trauma, am I right? She's also friends with Taiwan and India and a bunch of other countries. She has a lot of friends, actually. Yeah, on the other hand, China is probably her least favorite person on the planet, and this sentiment is quite mutual. They hate each other for many reasons. Her mother is Imperial Japan. I don't know who the father is. It's another one of those instances of maybe it was the Netherlands. Because they had such good trading relations. Because, like, Japan wouldn't let anyone else in, and then the Dutch came up and they were like, yo, here's some books, am I right? I'm sorry, I'm sorry I'm going off the script, I just came up with that on the spot. So, I don't know if the Netherlands is, like, the biological father or more of a father figure. I mean, I guess he probably wasn't much of a father figure, because number one, he lived on the other side of the world, and number two, during World War II, he and Imperial Japan were, like, not friends, am I right? I haven't gone off the script for so long in a long time. I'm sorry, I sound like an idiot, because I don't know what to say, I'm not reading off of something. But, I went off on a tangent, let's get back to, yeah. So, it's time to talk about Japan's lovely childhood. Yay. For a while it was actually pretty peaceful. She didn't have many friends because her mother wasn't in contact with other countries herself, so, yeah, but she wasn't really lonely. She was pretty close to her mother, as back then Imperial Japan wasn't, like, bouncing off the walls, starting wars. The first war that the Bebe Japan, sorry, Bebe, I pronunciation very good. The first war that Japan really experienced, like, not Imperial Japan, like baby child Japan, was, the Russo-Japanese War in 1904, which was sucky, but Imperial Japan did come out on top, so Japan didn't really have much of an opinion. She was like, well, people are dying and that's bad, but I mean, war crimes weren't happening left, right, and center. Imperial Japan also told her that the Russian Empire was a piece of human garbage, and again, she, like, didn't really have any friends to confirm or deny this. In 1910, Imperial Japan annexed the Korean Empire. In my headcanon, the Korean Empire isn't killed when this happens. She was under Imperial Japan's control at that point and was actually killed later during World War II, but I'm getting ahead of myself again. Japan, again, didn't really have an opinion because she was kind of like a sheltered child who didn't know how crappy everything was. World War I happens, it's the same kind of thing. And then comes the Great Depression and everything sucks. Japan knew something was really, really wrong and that her mother was getting pissy at literally everyone, but she was, like, spoon-fed the narrative that everyone else was garbage, and she did not really question it for a long time. The Council of Assholes, I mean the Axis powers, they are formed, and here she meets Germany and Italy, who are also children. By the way, I have no idea how aging works in this universe. They don't really, like, count their age as the number of actual years that they existed. There aren't really any technicalities to it, but, like, for the most part, a country is a child when their parent is in power, and there's this very unofficial transition to adulthood when they take over. But, yeah, Germany and Italy, it's the squad. Yay. Imperial Japan had been acting more and more erratic, and Japan was slightly unsettled by it, but she did not have the level of understanding that she would have later. I think she probably would have mostly realized what was happening when the war started to turn in the Allies' favor. She finally understood the extent of the war crimes, and while she felt a certain loyalty to her mother, she hated it. She felt really guilty about it, even though in my headcanon she's still a child and doesn't have anything to do with it, but, like, you know, it was just awful. Things got shittier and shittier, and the war in Europe ends, and Imperial Japan loses her shit. Y'all know what happens next. Nuclear hellfire. Yay. Sounded way too cheerful. I'm sorry, I'm so awkward when recording. Both when recording and talking about dark subjects, like, I start laughing, and it makes me look like a maniac, but it's like, you know the video where Logan Paul found the body in the forest, and he was laughing? Like, that's me, except I'm not recording bodies in forests. I don't know why I just made that comparison. That wasn't in the script either. I keep going off topic. I'm so sorry. I'm really hyperactive right now. I did not sleep at all last night. But yeah, after the first bombing, Imperial Japan was really badly hurt, but she was like, I'm about to be a stubborn bitch. And she did not surrender. Meanwhile, Japan was like, bruh. That was kind of underwhelming. Yeah, she was devastated because, I mean, that's tens of thousands of people dead. Now, clap. Who's ready for some angsty, cringy fan fiction? I know I sure am. Allow me to extend this video's runtime. Oh, by the way, this is, like, a tiny bit graphic. There's nothing too bad, but there's, like, mentions of blood, and overall I think this is kind of just, like, a sensitive topic, and yeah, it's set on the 9th of August, 1945, the day that the atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. Don't yell at me for the pronunciation, everyone pronounces it differently. Nagasaki, Nagasaki, I don't really give a shit, okay? I'm a stupid American. But yeah, I'm gonna read this now. I keep going off topic. I need to take a moment to calm down so I can, like, read this in a serious tone, though. To be fair, how serious can you be when reading Countryhumans fan fiction? Japan weakly clambered out of the rubble, her throat convulsing painfully as she coughed up dust. Her arms and legs were shaking and her bones felt achy and hollow. She finally forced herself to open her eyes and take in the sight of what had once been one of the largest, most lively cities in the country. She narrowed her stinging eyes, barely able to see through the smoke and the clouds of dust that hadn't yet settled. It was dead quiet, save for the crumbling of what structures were remaining and the crackling of fires. It was all gone. Everything was gone. More tears welled in her eyes, and this time it wasn't a reaction to the soot and smoke that invaded her senses. Tens of thousands of more innocent people, she thought, despair and outrage making her feel sick. Because you didn't have the humility to back down. Japan felt obligated to go and search for her mother, but she didn't want to see her face. This was her fault. She could have prevented this, but she didn't. She could have listened to the warnings, but she didn't. She was disgusted by what Imperial Japan had done. She clumsily snatched a chunk of brick and threw it as hard as she could with a sob of frustration and guilt. It broke into pieces when it hit the ground, and the noise echoed through the surrounding wasteland. She began coughing again as a gust of wind stirred up more dust, trying to suppress the nausea. Then she shakily stood back up and began searching among the charred debris. "Mom," she called out hoarsely, climbing over the wreckage. "Mom, where are you? Mom?" Japan's breath stopped when she finally found her mother. Imperial Japan was collapsed on the ground, completely motionless. A pool of blood was gathering underneath her, staining her tattered and burnt clothes. Japan thought she was dead until she noticed the ragged rise and fall of her breathing. She felt like she was going to be sick. She finally worked up the nerve to approach her. "Mom," she stammered, reaching out to touch her shoulder in an attempt to wake her up. Imperial Japan didn't react, and she started shaking her gently, hoping that would bring her back to consciousness. "Mom, wake up. Get up, please, please," she begged. She still didn't respond, and Japan had to keep checking to make sure that she was still breathing. "Wake up," she choked out, beginning to cry despite herself. She shouldn't be crying, especially not over such a terrible person, but she couldn't stop it. She gave into her trembling body after another coughing fit and slumped down next to her mother, pressing her ear against her chest so that she could make sure that her heart was still beating. She wasn't sure how long she was there, but before she knew it, the sun was down and stars speckled the black sky. She had closed her eyes, but she didn't think she had fallen asleep. Though this did feel enough like a dream. A nightmare. Japan checked her pulse again and was relieved to feel it against her fingers, but then she broke down crying again. "Please wake up, please," she shuddered, her throat aching from how much she'd been crying. Her ears perked up when the echoey sounds of footsteps broke the silence that was pressing in on the ruins of the city. Somehow she knew who it was before she even saw him. "Japan," America murmured quietly, his voice weighed down with exhaustion. She wiped her tears in a futile attempt to make it appear as if she hadn't been crying, but her chest still shook with sobs. She looked back down at her mother to check if she was still breathing, but it brought her little relief that time when she saw that she was. America took a step forward. "Is she... she's alive," she told him, her voice shaking. But she won't wake up. What's wrong with her? What did you do?" He opened his mouth to say something, but then he stopped. She couldn't see his eyes behind his glasses, and she had no idea what he was feeling. He looked away from her. "I'm sorry." Japan swallowed the sob that was rising in her throat again, and she stood up unsteadily, her legs trembling as she approached him. America sank onto his knees so he was down to her height level and let her cling onto him for comfort. She broke down and cried again into his shoulder, her entire body shaking. "I'm so sorry." She wanted to speak, but her vocal cords wouldn't let anything come out for a moment. She opened her eyes and pulled away a little bit to look up at him, wiping the tears away with her dirty sleeve. "I don't blame you." America didn't say anything. He finally took off his glasses and looked at the ground. She could see from the look in his eyes how much guilt haunted him. I don't blame you," she told him again, trying to steady her voice. Then she hugged him again, hiding her face and relaxing as best as she could so she could calm her irregular breathing. Her throat still hurt, but her body wasn't forcing her to cry like that anymore. She was so tired. She wasn't sure how long the two of them stayed like that either. After a while, America stood back up, prompting her to let go of him. He gently reached out his hand towards her. "Let's go," he murmured, his voice devoid of energy. He put his glasses back on, and they reflected the dim traces of light that came before the sun peeked over the horizon. Japan took his hand and didn't resist as he led her away. She ignored the urge to look back at Imperial Japan, who was still lying there, bleeding out. Her mother didn't deserve her time. "It's gonna be okay," America said after a few seconds of silence, but he sounded more like he was trying to convince himself. She couldn't bring herself to say anything as they walked away towards the beginnings of the sunrise in the distance. "I promise," he told her. "Do you really believe that?" she asked quietly. "I want to." That was some grade A cringe right there. After all that happens, America takes almost like a parental responsibility over Japan. Imperial Japan is Still alive for a little while longer, but she's really sick because of radiation poisoning. She actually died on May 3rd of 1947 when Japan's new constitution went into effect. America helped her rebuild, and they became really good friends through all of it. Economic growth was great, and things were actually really peaceful from then on. She kept in touch with her friends, but she only really got to see Italy and West Germany because the Soviet Union was keeping such a tight hold on East Germany. Of course, the two reunited later. Yeah, I don't really think I have anything more to touch on. I mean, I guess I could, like, talk about the Fukushima nuclear disaster, but, like, I don't want to end this video on such a shitty note like that, so, I'm gonna wrap it up as it is. I hope this video was tolerable, and once again, I am sorry for procrastinating on this for so long. And now, I shall procrastinate on my homework.